Good morning. Well, once again, we've seen the markets turning around. Yesterday, we had weakness in the markets, concerns about growth, especially in the large technology stocks. Today, we had the tech sector moving higher and the banks in the red, and a fair bit of activity coming back into the industrial stocks and the transport sector. And that's on the talk that we've seen over the last 24 hours, that there might be a bit more calm coming into some of these trade concerns or trade wars between the US and China. We were expecting new trade tariffs to be handed down as of today, but now we've heard that the Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin might be able to come through and make some negotiations with China. They say they're having quiet conversations, and that's rallied the markets higher, not only in the European markets, but also in the US overnight. So by the end of trade, we saw the Dow up 108 points and the Nasdaq up by 41 points. Broader S&P 500 also in positive territory. And when you looked at the gains, you could see that GE was up around 3%, Caterpillar up nearly 3%, and 3M up by 3.4%. So those industrial stocks really leading the charge. We did have some companies coming through with results, and this was following on from great numbers that came out from Europe in the banking sector with Standard Chartered and also Credit Suisse, and also in the commodity space where we had BP coming out with solid numbers as well in the last quarter. But here in the US, we had news that Pfizer's CEO came through and said that he feels that Donald Trump will eliminate drug rebates on prescriptions, and the share price up around 3% on that news. If we have a look at Charter Communications, this is the owner of Time Warner Cable. They have seen their share price moving higher on good earnings in the last period as well. Now, we're waiting on the numbers coming through from Apple. Expectations that their numbers will be stronger than the last period, but watch out on some of their margins, especially on their smaller items, where the market is concerned that they're paying a little bit more for development costs and they're just not reaping the reward in being able to replicate these at a higher rate, high enough to keep their margins up. If we have a look at other news stories, we did see a fair bit of movement coming into the commodity markets. The oil price falling over 2%. Now, this is after we saw a report coming through showing that OPEC had actually lifted the amount of oil they pumped into the international markets in the last month, the highest level we've seen this year, which added to concern of supply in the markets being pushed higher. And we saw that oil price down to around 68.70 US a barrel, while the gold price moved higher on these trade concerns being eased, and also the fact we had a fair bit of movement in the currency markets and the bond markets overnight. The yen losing a bit more ground after the news yesterday. The central bank did come through with some changes, but not as big as what the market was expecting. And we did see the yen coming under pressure as the US dollar and also the Aussie dollar gained. Looking at the Aussie market today, we're set for a moment for an 8-point gain, and the Aussie dollar at the moment at 74.29 US cents.